Buenas tardes, Laurent.
Hello.
Hello. The first question I will ask in Spanish and they will traduce for you to understand very good. ¿Cómo te posicionas frente a la producción, a la tradición cultural de Occidente?
I think my work deals a lot with the position, what can do an artist today, especially as a Western artist. So I did a different project, for example, about the aesthetic and the relationship between aesthetic and politics. One of my recent projects was a movie about the office of the French president, and to show in what kind of places the power in France is located, what kind of building, what kind of furniture, what kind of mood is created to increase the idea of power. So I think that for me it's really important to understand the different institutions, the different power in following a bit the philosopher Foucault, all the apparatus of power around us in the Western world. So I did also a project about military installation in Spain to show the relationship between the architecture of surveillance and its tradition and the citizen. Yeah, this kind of project.
You research something more than the symbolical aspects, or for example, when you compare the power institutions in the Eastern world are different than the Western, no?
No, it's just
I mean in the magical signification of the objects, or it's just a materialist researcher, for example, of the Palace of Justice or the President of France.
I think that whatever, wherever the place is, what I try to catch with my project is a kind of radiation, a kind of power. We say magical, but it's something that I think we could analyze and understand better in the future. Yes. This is the reason also I'm very interested by very new tools to analyze different layers of the reality. Yes. So recently I use hyper-spectral cameras or thermal cameras, but I think that this field will progress and will allow you and me to understand things that we call magical, but they will start to be something we can analyze and experience.
Yes, when I talk about magical aspect, the meaning is the material forces, material particles that we are not able to touch or perceive. Sure. That were our common feelings, no? No fantasy things, of course, no? So could be acceptable that the powers places produce some kind of different kind of energies, no? And you think that if you can reach this to make a registration of these forces, we can modulate it, we can make our artistic work to to modify these kind of forces to produce a better or something that, I mean, in the art could be a weapon of transformation of the society?
I don't think that art is made to give answer. I'm mostly trying to ask questions and to train the mind to experience new position, new perspectives, and a new way of thinking. I'm mostly part of the field of fiction, and this is what I try to do, is more to invent, to create some new small universe where we see the reality in a different way.
So this put me in the second question. Science usually gives an answer to reality, yes? And the art usually illuminate some kind of mystery. Don't want to ask, no? To give a good answer. Could you state in front of the scientific traduction of the reality? How do you step in front of the scientists that used to use good questions, no? To close the question.
I think that, of course, science has a bit, in a way, a too strong or too good reputation, because each scientific research is at the beginning one fiction, and it's made of coincidence and of random, and also of needs. So there is no, before to be science, we have like something more wild and poetic and more artistic. The alchemistry became the chemical research, you know. Before it was something philosophic and something poetic and something more in the field of beliefs than science. So I think that a good scientist is also somebody able to go in an unknown territory to find things, you know, like an artist in a way. After, of course, the scientist is also able to provide very functional tools, and but functional for some things are very necessary, like medical science, of course, but some other are really oriented, and they are not so important. It's just because some people decide to do research on one topic. So I like people like Nikola Tesla, because he was in the middle of art and science in a way, because he was able to think to impossible things with no function actually at this time when he started the research. He started the research about lighting the Earth with a magnetic field, illuminating the Earth, you know, with a kind of artificial light that was nothing. I mean, of course, there is the idea of free electricity and free light, but it's also a kind of
epiphenomenon.
Art installation.
How do you step in front of the visual cultural world?
I play a lot with different tradition and different history of art regarding the different projects I've made. I was able to study and to have access to different practice. I think that, for example, for one of my projects in Japan, I mixed some Japanese sculpture with some Western and Italian sculpture, and I created some work mixing both tradition together. So I think that in a way I don't see really a difference between different tradition. It's more a question of time and period of time. I was interested a lot, for example, by the history in Japan, like in the 16th century. You have this kind of practice of the Christian religion in Japan. So you have also a mix of the tradition of representation coming from the Western world in Asia, and you have all this story about this kind of meeting of different traditions. So I think it's really interesting, and it's something that we should allow and work with, of course. But in the meantime, I think it's dangerous to see a kind of separation or a kind of separation of tradition.
Well, now I will ask you about the diversity of materials that you use to work.
Yes, I have no traditional medium.
Talking about tradition.
I work with any kind of material. It's not important. I think today an artist has to work with different. It's also something very common today.
And if you have to resolve a specific material, you work by your own, or you call a specialist? You work with an assistant? So how you
I work with movie, with sculpture, with painting, with neon, with different kind of material. I think it's not important. The important thing is the story behind it, and the different layer of reality, and I think for me my medium very often is the exhibition itself.
The exhibition itself.
But this is also very common today, and I like also to do public space installation. It's another part of my work, because I like to go out of the frame and to be able to show work without any preparation for the viewer. So I like a lot also when people can just experience something they don't know what is it.
What is the information that you carry you to asking about psychoanalytic practice and Freudism?
We very easily understood that psychoanalysis is very important in Argentina.
It's very, yes.
So we ask more information about this history, because like each field, it helps you to understand better the country. So we ask more information about psychoanalysis, because we understood it's something really strong, and like it's like I don't know. It looks very common.
Yes.
And very natural here, or it's not like that in France, for example.
No, you feel that here is more.
Yeah, absolutely.
This neighborhood we call Villa Freud, Freudville, maybe.
Yeah.
And maybe a lot of people here go to the psychoanalyst after that. Well, something more that you want to say to Argentinian people?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.